What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. It is August 1st, 2025. That's when this episode aired. But we do all of our episodes live, or the majority of them we do, unless we have something else taking up that time frame. We will have a pre-recorded episode towards the end of the month because we're going to be at Starfest. So we won't be around for that episode. It's the second to last episode of the month, just before our special guest. So we will have a pre-recorded episode coming up here soon. But other than that, all the episodes are generally live. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on the channel. Let us know we're doing a good job, that we should keep this going. We've had so much support over the years, and we're still going strong. The episode at the end of the month with our special guest is episode 270. So we've been going at this for some time, and we show no signs of slowing down anytime soon. So again, appreciate everybody. Please subscribe to USA.com and title it What's Up. If you want to stay up with what's going on at Skywatcher, like sales and new product releases and fun stuff like that, you can head over to skywatcherusa.com and click subscribe and save up at the top. You can join our email list. It'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on here at Skywatcher. So without further ado, let's jump into what's going on in August. Of course, the brightest thing in the nighttime sky, the moon. New moon is going to be August 22nd. So towards the end of the month. Dark sky weekend is the 23rd and 24th. That is the weekend that Starfest takes place. So if you are up in Ontario and the Toronto region, we're really looking forward to that. Starfest is an awesome event. The hospitality is honestly second to none, and just a great group of people, friendly, highly recommend going, and we're eager to get back up there and say hi to all of our friends. So that's where we're going to be for New Moon weekend. Hopefully your audio's being weird. Hold on. It might be time to replace some cables. Okay. I reset everything. I might have to look at getting a new audio cable. We've had this for a few years. Might be time to reset the audio cable. We'll figure that after. Hopefully that sounds better. I've reseated everything. So, okay. So August 23rd, 24th, that's going to be your new moon weekend where it's nice and dark. Get out to your favorite dark sky site as long as you don't get too toasty out there because it's rather hot. Full moon is right around the corner, as you've probably been out the last few nights if you've gone out. And yeah, go ahead and get out there and look at it. We do have some nice crescent moons right now, but we are moving into full moon, which is August 9th. That is actually, sorry, it should be the sturgeon moon. Sturgeon moon is the nickname of the full moon for August. This comes from the Great Lakes region, where sturgeon fish are normally caught this time of year, and that's where it got its name. So a lot of the full moon names usually start related with some kind of Native American tradition or something that goes along that time frame for that particular region. A lot of it usually stems from the eastern part of the country where the original colonies originated from. But a lot of the folklore kind of stems from that upper region of the U.S. And North America. But I'm sure if you went all around the world, just like constellations or different regions of the world, you're going to get all different kinds of folklore. And you get into that really cool archaeoastronomy stuff where culture comes involved, which is really fascinating. If you ever take some time to do a deep dive onto archaeoastronomy, highly recommend it. Planets. Not a ton going on in the evening skies, but that doesn't mean things aren't coming. So here is the night sky tonight around 8:15. We'll have a nice little crescent moon hanging out there. Actually, is it already? Or are we just past first quarter? We're right about first quarter. I don't pay a lot of attention to the moon. I probably should. Um, but yeah, first quarter tonight, roughly. But as the moon kind of sails across the sky, there's no major planets up in this part of the sky in the evening, but we do have a lot of stuff going on in the morning. Saturn is making its way back into the nighttime sky now. Actually, it's getting pretty darn close. Saturn's actually starting to pop up around, what was that, 10 o'clock? Yeah, so Saturn's coming back. And looks like the moon will be right next to it, not too far, on the 12th. So, but yeah, looks like we are getting Saturn towards later in the evening, but by the end of the month, Saturn should actually be coming back into the sky at a reasonable hour. So about 8 o'clock, Saturn will be rising on the eastern horizon, so we'll be getting Saturn back in the night sky. Yay. That'll be a very popular target if you do outreach. But in the mornings, I don't normally dig into the mornings. But I know Jupiter and Venus are getting really close to each other. Actually, there's a big collection of stuff happening in the morning. So you're going to have, this is on the 20th, you're going to have a very thin crescent moon and Venus hanging out with Jupiter. So you're going to have a triangle. I'm sure it'll be all over the news about how amazing this thing is going to be. Yay. It's not a huge deal, but it looks cool. So you can get out, see that. So yeah, it looks like that triangle happens on the 20th. Then you have a nice little collection right here, 3 in a row on the 19th. This was like 5 a.m. So, but then going back the other way, right there on August 12th, we're going to have a very close collection between Venus and Jupiter. Right there on the 12th in the early morning hours, you'll be able to catch that. And they'll still be pretty close for a couple days. So, as you get to... Actually, we're probably getting pretty close now. If you're out in the early morning, they're getting closer to each other. But then as time progresses over those few days, we'll have a really nice sight on the 11th, 12th, 13th, and even the 14th won't be too bad. But your closest approach there is going to be on the 12th in the early morning hours, just before dawn, right up there next to Orion and Gemini. We'll have a really nice view of the two planets there. So that could be a cool little photo moment if you're going to be going out and checking it out. It looks like all the moons will be in a nice line together as well. So not a lot as far as planets go in the evening sky, but in the morning, there's a lot going on. But by the end of the month, we are going to have Saturn back up in the evening sky. And then as we move into September, Saturn will probably be a lot easier to see for a lot of people as it rises higher and higher and becomes our lead planet as we move into autumn next month. The sun. Sun is very dynamic. It's always changing. It's a great object to go out and image, observe, sketch if you want to do some sketching. But let's see. Oh, I forgot to do my little spiel there. But I like to type in Gong, G-O-N-G, space H alpha. And you can go over into this website, the NSO website, and actually see what's going on in hydrogen alpha. Hydrogen alpha is the most dynamic filter of the solar filters. White light works well. White light is how many of us get started in solar. Let me pull up space weather here. There's like a speckling of them. So there's like a collection of sunspots all over the sun's disk right there. Nothing humongous, but there's stuff going on. But then you can go over and see what's going on in hydrogen. So this is white light. Many of us get started in solar observing with a white light filter, and then we move up to the hydrogen alpha narrowband, and gives you a lot of detail, a lot of structure, and it's constantly changing. So cool stuff going on up there right now. As with anything when observing the sun, please make sure you're using safe solar filters and good ones. Don't cheap out on solar filters. They're your eyes. You only get 2 chances. So make sure you are being safe with the sun. Question: what about the rings of Saturn still edge on? I believe I haven't actually looked at Saturn yet this season, but they've already gone edge on. I do believe they're starting to open a little bit, but it's still going to be really close to edge on. So it's still going to be pretty thin for a little bit. but they are going to start opening up as time progresses. But yeah, they're still pretty thin from what I've seen. So not dead on edge on anymore. They've opened up a little bit. So, yep. Meteor showers. So August is the host of the largest meteor shower of the entire year. That is the Perseid meteor shower, and that peaks in a few days. 12th and 13th are the peak. However, the one issue this year is that the moon phase is 87%. So it's going to be very, very bright when observing this meteor shower. And we're actually going to do an episode towards the end of the month. Actually, it's the pre-recorded episode that we're going to be doing. That is for how to observe a meteor shower. So I don't want to go into too much detail, so we can do that episode. But usually the best time to observe a meteor shower is before dawn. You're going to have the moon and Saturn pretty close to each other that night too. But this is how bright the moon's going to be that night. So we're going to have a very bright moon to contend with both of those nights. So there's a better chance that you're going to get a good shot at meteor showers when there's no moon in the sky, so you can see all the fainter ones. Perseids tend to be bigger and brighter, but with the moon, it's probably going to wash out a chunk of them. So that's something that you're going to want to consider there if you're going to be driving out to somewhere dark and watching it. It's not really the optimal year for the Perseid meteor shower. Now, we are in the window now. We're not at the peak, but we're in the window. So if you're going out to a dark sky site this weekend, once the moon goes down around midnight, you'll probably catch some. And even if you're going to be doing something for new moon this month, you'll probably still catch some of the meteors as they buzz through and do their things. I was just in Phoenix, was hoping you guys had a storefront so I could stop by, but no, we do not have a storefront at all. If you want a storefront, you have to go through a dealer. Star Arizona is really the only one here in the Arizona region. There might be some Stellar Vision, also down in Tucson. Nothing really in the Phoenix area. We haven't had a telescope shop here in years. That's just kind of how it works. But Skywatcher doesn't actually have a storefront. We have offices in California, but yeah, we don't have a storefront people can visit. So it'd be cool if we had a storefront. Wouldn't mind one, especially here in Arizona. It'd be cool to have people come by and say hi and see all of our fun stuff. But that costs a bundle of money, and it's a business decision. But yes, our offices are in California, not Phoenix. Comets. Comets, as we all know, they change constantly. Sometimes you've got good ones. Some are just like, so it really just depends on what's going on. But if you want to stay up with what's going on with comets, I like to go to cometchasing.skyhound.com. They have a video that's up every month. And you're able to go watch that and see what's relevant when it comes to comets. They list everything that's of interest right now that might be observable. But there's nothing that's really going crazy right now. A lot of people are talking about this 3-eye atlas, but it is very faint. It's an imaging target. So you're at 16th and a half magnitude. That is a stretch for that's pushing 30-inch Dob territory. You need a big scope, very dark skies to visibly see this. Now, we are going to get a close approach here in October, the end of October, right near Halloween. And into November, we'll see how that looks. But we'll see. I don't see anything else here that's of real relevance. Nothing super awesome happening right now, but always keep an eye on this website. That's why we bring it up every month, so you can actually see what's going on, because comets change all the time. They could have an outburst and suddenly they're much brighter, they're easy to see, and they put on an amazing show. So it just depends on what's going on with that comet. But right now, from what it looks like, everything's kind of pretty quiet. If you want to do any kind of comet observing, you're going to probably need a very large telescope or cameras to really go track down these little celestial visitors that fly through the solar system, and all kinds of stuff. So nothing on the comet front here. We are flying through this. None of you have questions about anything, just to help burn some time up. Hopefully we don't finish too early. So deep sky right now, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Summertime is very busy, especially if you're into nebulas like myself. You have a range of stuff to actually observe right now. I'm a big fan of planetary nebulas. There's a bunch of those up right now, especially if you get down into like Scorpio and Sagittarius and up into Cygnus, anything along that main line of the Milky Way. There's all kinds of little planetary nebulas in there. Some really elusive stuff is up there too when you get into like the Abell catalog. If you're into globular clusters, you have Palomar clusters up right now. There's all kinds of stuff if you want to really dig into the nighttime sky. But then there's also kind of the favorites. Now, one of those is NGC 6543, which is what you see here. This is the Cat's Eye Nebula and Draco, about 3,300 light years away. Most planetary nebulas are rather small. There's very few that are large, like the Helix Nebula is a big one that's rather large. But a lot of these are very small. So having some aperture to throw at them and some high power to really break up the detail, that's really what you want to have. A large aperture telescope like a C11 or C14 is a good starting point. But the more aperture you chuck onto these little guys, the more interesting that they get. Now, the Cat's Eye Nebula has this really cool outer halo, very heavy in structure outer halo, but it has one bright region off to the right here, at least in the image. That you can actually see in larger telescopes in dark skies, and because it is primarily lit in oxygen 3, I recommend using an O3 filter to help bring that out. But you're probably going to want to put some magnification on it. You'll have to play with it because every telescope and every location is different. But don't be afraid to throw some magnification on these larger telescopes. Even if you have to hand track it like some manual Dobbs, don't worry about it too much. See what you can do on it. There's a question. I have a Star Travel 102 for 3 years and use it with Bino Viewer of the North American Nebula and a pair of TeleVue 32 Plossels and UHC filter. But the edge of the field of view looks much brighter than the center. I'm wondering if there is anything I can do to make the edge of the field of view look darker, perhaps an aperture mask, maybe. That's interesting. Usually when that happens, it means there's something going on with the filter. Usually. TeleVue makes really good stuff. Their filters are made by Astronomic over in Europe. They're probably my favorite filter company, especially for visual filters. I had a set of them before they got stolen, and I haven't replaced them. I use cheaper filters, but the TeleVue filters are Astronomic. But that's pretty interesting. I don't know why. I'm sure someone does. But something funky is going on there. Because if you're doing that with imaging, when you have this reverse vignetting happening where it's bright on the edge and dark. No, I'm sorry. It's reversed. So when you're doing astrophotography and you're using a very fast telescope with a filter that's too tight, let's say you're using an F3 or a Hyperstar and you're using just a standard narrowband that's not offset for high speed, you get what's this reverse vignetting where it's bright in the center and dim on the outer because it's shifting the band pass. What you're explaining is a little odd. I don't know enough about it to know why, but I would call TeleVue and maybe ask what's going on with that, especially if some of you are actually dealing with other things. I'm not sure, so unfortunately. Any visual reflection nebulas for summer you can recommend? Visual reflection nebulas. The easiest one I can think of is the blue portion of the Trifid Nebula on M20. Back this up a little bit. So, and I don't want to be at 4 in the morning. So right down here. So the Trifid Nebula has this blue section on it. That is a reflection nebula. Most blue is reflection. That is visible. I have seen it in a 7-inch telescope. From very dark skies, you can see it. You want something that's very dark and good contrast, but that's a fairly bright reflection nebula. Reflection nebulas are normally clouds of dust that are around bright stars that cause it to illuminate. There's a handful of them up in the summer. They're more common in the wintertime when we're looking away from the core of the Milky Way. I mean, another one is the blue horsehead up here in the upper part of Scorpio. And then, of course, you have Rho Ophiuchus down here, one of my favorite regions in the sky. That has reflection nebula in it. That would be an interesting thing to try, but you're probably going to want like a refractor that's unobstructed. You want to reduce all light scatter and see what you can see. But reflections are very difficult nebulas to visually observe just because of the frequency of light that they're usually in. A lot of them are blue, and this eye is not sensitive to blue at all. And to do it in a very low light situation, blue goes out the window first. So that's going to be difficult. So yeah. Okay. So anyway, Cat's Eye Nebula, that's a good one to go after. If you want something that's a little bit more of a challenge, aren't you working the way? Okay, something's not playing nice right now. My computer froze. Microsoft PowerPoint is frozen. There we go. Sorry. Come on, PowerPoint. Okay. If you want something a lot more challenging in the planetary world, you have Abell 39. This is in Hercules. This nebula is like looking for a ghost. You want to go very slow when you're trying to find this target. The best view I've ever seen of it was in my buddy's old 18-inch Obsession. It was just a really good night, good transparency, really dark. We were able to see it easily. Now, I have done it in my old 20-inch that I have. I've seen it in the 28 that I've got now, but that first view, the 18, was the best. It was just a good night. And it's very easy to run over this object. Now, it's blue. So remember, like what we were talking about earlier, blue is not a great frequency when we're talking low light for the eye to detect. It is not sensitive in that part of the spectrum, especially when we're talking low light. So be very careful when you're finding this object because you can easily pass by it if you're not paying attention. It's very faint, even in a large telescope. Now, because it's blue, oxygen 3 is going to be the filter of choice. If you don't have one of those, a UHC filter can be very helpful, but it is a challenging object to see. But you're going to want dark skies. And the nice thing about this visually is it goes straight overhead for most of us here in North America. So that's a really good place to actually spend time viewing where it's at the darkest. But it can be tricky to see. So go slow when you're looking for it. Imaging wise, it doesn't take much. The cameras can hunt it down pretty quickly. But do remember that a lot of cameras are not super duper sensitive in blue, and it'll take more exposure time to bring it out. But it's a really cool nebula. It's practically circular. It's got that really nice tight little central star, and it's just a cool nebula. It's a lot bigger than you might think as well. So you know, if you're used to these little planetary nebulas, this one's a bit larger than you might think. Question, I leave my 300p outside covered. Does summer heat affect mirror coatings? No, the heat shouldn't affect the mirror coatings. If there's moisture and it's under a cover, that can affect mirror coatings and electronics and particle board and all kinds of stuff. I've seen it numerous times where people put a cover over something, especially in these really humid environments, and the humidity is so heavy that it gets stuck underneath that cover, and the cover is made to protect it from moisture, but it also keeps moisture inside. So we've had people who have their telescopes under covers, they go to pull them off, and it's just drenched inside that cover because all the humidity gets stuck inside of there. So that would be the one thing I would say when doing a cover. If you live in an environment that has high humidity and lots of moisture in the air, be careful with leaving things under covers because you might actually be doing damage to your scope. But the mirrors are really well coated. The coatings last a long time, and then we have a quartz overcoat on top of the aluminum coatings for our mirrors. And if you take care of these things, you're talking about a decade or more before you would have to send that mirror in to get stripped and coated by a third party. We don't strip and coat primary mirrors, but there's plenty of services that can do that. But yeah, if you're not taking care of a mirror, maybe a coating will last 5 to 10 years. If you actually take care of it, you can get at least a decade out of it, especially if you live in a very arid environment, then probably over a decade for some of these. It also just depends on how good the coatings actually are. Ours are pretty decent, actually. I've seen telescopes that are several years old. The mirrors look fine. So, and with our mirrors, I've had this come up multiple times, so I'll just let people know. If you're not aware, if your mirror coating on, say, your Dobsonian is starting to wear down, and over time it will, you can usually check it by putting a flashlight behind the mirror or holding it up to the sun or a very bright light source. Well, you have the mirror out of the cell, hold it up to a bright light source, and let the mirror cover up that surface or that source, and you'll be able to see how thin the coating actually is. And over time, coatings fade. It happens on professional telescopes. It happens on every single telescope. You can't get around it other than protecting it so it lasts longer. But, oops, camera timed out. But yeah, you can check your coatings to see if they've thinned out. If they thinned out, then go find a recoater. Terry Oustahowski is probably the one I would recommend the most off the top of my head. There's plenty of other ones, but I've actually worked with Terry. I have a couple of his mirrors. He does a great job, and his coating is done on the West Coast, which is another reason I like using them, because I'm on the West Coast, where there's other ones on the East Coast as well, like Spectrum is amazing. Spectrum Coatings is on the East Coast. There's some other ones, I think, as well that I can't remember, but I haven't used them. I don't have to recoat mirrors that often. But when I had my 28-inch coated, it went to Terry because Terry was closer and it was on the West Coast, so I didn't have to worry about shipping it across the country again. But Terry is really good because, Terry is an optician. He knows what he's doing. He's done this for decades. And a big thing, at least for myself and other people, his chambers can handle up to like 36-inch mirrors. So if you need a big mirror coated, he can cover it up to about 36-inch apertures. So, but I like Terry, and he does really nice work with recoating. So, let's see. What about corrector plate coatings? So coatings on lenses can fail. I do have a refractor. It's not one of ours. It's a very high-end brand, but I have a very high-end refractor in my collection, and the coatings failed. It's not a Skywatcher, but we had to strip it. And that telescope is a great deep sky telescope, but it's not good on planets anymore. It's because it has micro scratches and stuff from the coatings failing and us cleaning it off. But with that all being said, coatings on anything can fail at some point. But I've seen a lot less of that on lenses and correctors than aluminum. Usually aluminum coatings on mirrors are generally on Newtonians. Newtonians are exposed to all the elements when they're out being used. That tends to go faster, but like Celestron XLT coatings on their corrector plates, I'm sure here and there they can fail, but I honestly haven't seen them. They're really hard coatings, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you want to know more, I would contact the company and ask them. Like if it's a Celestron Schmidt-Cassegrain, then you'd have to ask Celestron. They would know more. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, coatings on lenses tend to be really robust. Another planetary nebula that's up in the nighttime sky is the Ring Nebula up in Lyra. This is a staple for the summer sky here in the northern hemisphere. It's an easy one to track down. I still remember the first time I saw this in my little 6-inch Newtonian when I was just getting started. It was really cool to just pull up a map in my backyard, light polluted backyard, just a kid, and finding this nebula was really neat. It was something that I was able to do on my own from my backyard. It's bright enough to see. If you put an O3 or a UHC filter in the light path, it really pops out nicely. But even in a small 4-inch telescope, you can see it. More aperture, of course, helps. But it's a fun one to go after even in light-polluted locations, and filters can also help. Let's see. Question. I'm trying to image M33. What's better to use, UV-IR cut or multi-band? Well, if it's a one-shot color camera, it has a UV-IR window built into it already. The window in front of most color cameras, in order to help with that color balance, is a UV-IR filter. If you're doing monochrome imaging with a black and white camera, a luminance filter is a UV-IR filter, but that's just luminance channel. Multibands can help. There's a lot of different types of multiband filters out there. M33 is a galaxy, and it does have H2 regions in it, and those H2 star-forming regions are mostly hydrogen, and they're very receptive to the hydrogen alpha line. So narrowband with hydrogen can help pop those out, but that really doesn't do anything for the galaxy itself. So if you're shooting one-shot color, the one filter that really comes to mind is the Triband RGB from Antlia, I think is what it is. That's a great all-around filter that can help. They have a quad band version of it. I've never used it, and I don't know many people who have, but something like that. So if you're in a semi-good sky, a UV-IR cut, which should already be on a one-shot color camera, will be fine. No filter would be needed. If you're in town and you're dealing with light pollution, a standard light pollution filter like an L Pro from Optolong or a CLS CCD from Astronomic or anything like that, these broadband filters, those would be fine. So, and there's a good shot of the Ring Nebula from our friend Ron. Now M57, while being a planetary, also has this outer halo. And there's also Galaxy NGC 1296 right next door. But the outer halo is very, very faint. I have not seen it visually. And imaging-wise, you'd have to do longer exposures, which are going to blow out the core of the nebula. So you're going to have to learn to process very carefully when imaging something like this, because the nebula is nice and bright. The outer halo is very faint. So you'll have to find that balance. Question. I have a one-shot color camera. What can I use as a luminance filter? One-shot color doesn't really have that need for luminance, if you will. So when you're shooting monochrome, you need to build up this when you're shooting black and white or a monochrome camera. You need to get the overall structure of the image. You need to get all that detail in your object. So a luminance filter allows the sensor to build up all this data and all that structure, and that's basically the core of your image. And all that you're basically doing in monochrome after that, with the luminance finally done, is you're just adding color on top of it to add color. You're not really bringing out a ton of extra detail with RGB imaging. That's why when you're doing monochrome imaging, you can shoot the luminance at super high resolution, like 1x1 bin if you needed to, and get all that structure and all that detail. And then for color, you're really just using it for color detail. So you can actually bin your RGB frames to get more signal of that color faster, because when you add it to the luminance data, it's not going to care about the structure, because the way we process it, by overlaying the color onto luminance, all the structure is maintained with luminance, and then you add the color. With a color camera or one-shot color camera, you don't have that luxury. You don't have the ability to separate everything easily. You can in post-processing, like PixInsight will break apart a color image into RGB, and you can work with each color individually and mess around with it. But there's not really a lot that can be done for luminance on a color camera. All you can really do from that perspective is just pound away and get more signal. So monochrome has the luxury of being able to break everything apart, and you're able to work on it all individually, but you lose its convenience because you have to do extra work. One-shot color camera gives you less control, but it gives you convenience on being able to get more. So there's not really a great option for luminance on one-shot color. If you just want a general all-around filter from a light polluted location, like I said, like an L Pro or the Astronomics CLS CCD, the Chroma Low Glow, just a general light pollution filter can be helpful, but it still won't equal what luminance is on its own. You can take a monochrome camera, shoot luminance, and then take one-shot color data and apply them together. I do that a lot, where I've done talks on this too, where you get all that structure from the luminance of monochrome. You get all the ability and capabilities of a monochrome camera with the convenience of one-shot color, but then you have to mix and do all that stuff. So, question, can you elaborate a little bit on the image circle of telescopes and how it affects vignetting on wide field eyepieces? Where can I find the value of the actual image circle for a Skywatcher 200p? Image circles are usually saved for imaging telescopes. The circle is how big of an illuminated field is it going to produce. That way you know how large a sensor can be illuminated. You don't really hear about image circle too much on visual telescopes. However, technically they can exist. Like, what's the illuminated field? Some of the wider field eyepieces can vignette. It really depends on what the combo is. The big thing you probably want to pay most attention to is the exit pupil of the eyepiece. And this can be calculated. I don't have the calculator in front of it. I think we even have it on our Scope Wizard app if you download that. But you can calculate the exit pupil of the combo that you're working with. If the exit pupil is bigger than 7 millimeters, you're losing light. Now, that's not the end of the world, especially if it's a big telescope. You probably won't notice it too much, but it may look like it's vignetting a little bit because all the light is being clipped by your eyeball. Because at best, when an iris in the eye is completely dark adapted, at best, it's 7 millimeters in diameter. So that way, and as we get older, those reduce. So you're not able to open up to the full 7 millimeter anymore. So it's important to know if you're using a low power eyepiece, is it actually clipping? Now, another way you can vignette, particularly on Newtonians, is maybe the secondary isn't big enough to cover whatever the field is. That can happen with lower power eyepieces that are too big. Now, I haven't heard too many people say that on a 200p, and it depends on which 200p, because 200 is the aperture, p means parabolic. We make the Quattro 200p, we make the Flex Tube 200p, they make the standard 200p, which is f5. So as far as 200p's go for Skywatcher, we make an 8-inch f4, an 8-inch f5, and an 8-inch f6. So it depends on which one we're talking about. If you want to know more, you can always email support@skywatchusa.com, and we can ask the engineering team to ask what the illuminated field is visually for that particular scope. But there could be a couple things going on. Question: 11-inch Edge HD 11. Is it better match for the EQ6R or the Wave 150? It's a good question. I have imaged successfully with an 11-inch Edge on a Wave 150, and we just did that to test it. Here's what I say about strain wave mounts. Strain wave mounts are great. They're lightweight, they can hold a fair amount of weight, and they're small. The key being there is they are lightweight. They are a low mass mount. So yes, they can hold a lot of weight and they don't weigh a lot. But I actually prefer heavier mounts for heavier tubes because I feel like that extra mass gives you better rigidity and dampening time when we're talking vibrations or wind and stuff like that. So if I had to pick one personally, I would go for the EQ6R. Both mounts would actually work fine, but the EQ6R being a more heavier, a more massive mount helps with the dampening of that long focal length better. Both of them will handle it though. So, but if I had to pick, it'd be an EQ6R. Let's see. Have you been able to see Andromeda Galaxy spiral arms and NGC 6741, the Bortle 4 with an 8-inch Dobsonian for... Okay, full question here. Have you been able to see the Andromeda Galaxy spiral arms and NGC 6741 in Bortle 4 to 5 skies with an 8-inch Dobsonian for visual observing? It's a big question. I am not familiar, on the top of my head at least. NGC 6741. Phantom Streak Nebula. Oh, and Aquila. What's the magnitude of this thing? So here's NGC, right? NGC 7041 and Aquila. It's 11th magnitude. It's probably tiny. Yeah, it's tiny. I don't think I've seen this one, although it is 11th magnitude. So hold on. Oh, we have a website right here. I think we have it listed. Hold on just a second. Where are they? There we go. 200. Limiting magnitude of 14 for an 8-inch telescope. You should be able to see NGC 6741 with an 8-inch telescope because this is an 11th magnitude object. An 8-inch maxes out at around 14th magnitude. You're probably going to want to be in darker skies. Bortle 4, Bortle 5 might be okay. Planetaries tend to be a little bit more forgiving because they're dense balls of light usually. I don't see why an 8-inch could do it. I don't have a lot of time observing on an 8-inch Dob. I went from a 6-inch Newtonian to a 10-inch Dob. I kind of skipped over 8 because I started with a 6. So at the time, it didn't make sense for me to have an 8-inch. And when we do a lot of dark sky events, we don't bring an 8-inch very often. Usually like it's a 10 or a 12 or something like middle ground kind of stuff. But I don't see any reason an 8 shouldn't be able to catch that nebula. It's probably going to be really small though. So you're going to want to make sure you've got some magnification to put on it. As for the spiral arms, yes, I have seen spiral arms in Andromeda. It's really not difficult to do. But you need either more aperture or darker skies. In darker skies, you can see spiral arms with binoculars. I didn't see dust bands and spiral arms for Andromeda until I got my 16-inch Dob at the time. But the real trick with Andromeda, especially in a telescope like a Dob, where you're talking probably 1,000 millimeter focal length or longer, is it gets cut out of the field of view of the telescope because you can't fit it all in that focal length easily visually. So shorter focal lengths will help. Wider field, you'll be able to see it. But yeah, there shouldn't be any reason that you couldn't get it. Bortle 4, Bortle 5, you're on that cusp of getting to dark skies. Question: How significant is focal length in correcting for eyepiece issues? Example: $100 24 millimeter 68 degree eyepiece in a C8 versus a 24 pan in a C8. Is there a huge difference at that focal length? Eyepieces can put distortion into things. You can get what's called pin cushion, where it kind of distorts the field. Field curvature, you can see that. Some of the higher end eyepieces are better corrected for something like that. At a C8 at 2000 millimeter focal length, they're fairly decently corrected, but you can have coma out towards the edge. That's why the Edge HD and the Meade ACF actually exist, because they correct for that edge distortion. So if you're using a standard Schmidt-Cassegrain or a standard C8, you could probably get distortion. Cheaper eyepieces will also show distortion more than, say, maybe something that's a little bit more expensive that probably has a bit more engineering for correcting edge performance. I haven't spent much time. I do have a 24 pan optic, but I haven't spent time with like competing 24 millimeter eyepieces. I'm kind of a Teleview fan, and I'm not like completely loyal to Teleview, but I like the quality of Teleview, and I've learned over the years that if you're going to do something, just get the good one right off the bat, and you only cry once. But everything is going to be different. I've seen cheaper eyepieces on fast telescopes fall apart really quickly. Like something under f7. I've seen eyepieces where the edge performance just sucks. But faster telescopes are going to be way more critical on an eyepiece than slower telescopes. Usually at like f10, like a Schmidt-Cassegrain, it's slow enough to where you're not really going to see a ton of distortion. But if your eye is picking up on that, you know, sometimes there's a reason one costs this and one costs that. But I tend to go with Teleview just because I like the quality. I know them. They're very helpful. Their team is great. So I like supporting them. But that's just me. But I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing to try. If you have one 24 millimeter, and if you have a friend or someone in a club that has a 24 pan optic, set up a night, try them out. Because that's how you learn a ton of stuff. Like, get together with your friends, try different combos out, try different scopes, compare them in the same night. You will learn so much more comparing things with your buddies on one night than you will ever reading a forum website or watching a video or whatever. That firsthand experience, you can't buy that kind of experience. So if you've got a group of friends and everybody's got different equipment, we've done this with my friends. We'll set up a bunch of stuff and we'll try it out. It's amazing what you can see when you really start comparing things. But again, you're going to have a group of people. Let's see. Should we be expecting prices for astronomy products to go up again due to tariffs? That's a really good question. I have no idea. At the end of the month, our special guest is Ben Hauk. He is the senior VP of sales for Celestron. He unfortunately has to deal with all of this tariff crap on the daily. So that could be a good question for Ben at the end of the month. Tariffs really messed up a bunch of stuff and have not provided really any good support for anybody. I don't know if they're going to go up again. I guess it just depends on how high things go. I mean, if it gets ridiculous, we don't have a choice. But hopefully it doesn't. But I don't handle any of that. We've already raised prices. We don't like doing that. So I don't know. That's the big answer is I don't know. It's too fluid right now for anybody to actually make a play on it. And that's what's been most frustrating about the tariff situation this year is the numbers just change and there's no reason for it. They just change. You can't play the game if the field keeps changing. You can't score the goal if the goalpost keeps moving. That's the problem, is we can't establish any kind of certainty because the playing field is uncertain. So too many variables going on. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I know it's August 1st. I think this is when things were supposed to kind of solidify. I guess we'll find out. I have no idea. I really hope not. So, but again, I don't handle that. So don't take any of that as solid answers. The big answer is don't know. Another thing real quick. Great questions today, by the way. These are awesome questions. Let me just flow through here really quick. M13, great globular cluster. It's up in the nighttime sky right now. Easy to hit with almost any type of telescope or any aperture. But it's a great object. Great for outreach. 22 to 25,000 light years away. About 1 million stars. 500,000 to 1 million. But yeah. And then if you can, try to see if you can see that really cool little structure in the middle there. Those little crosses right there. Is the Star Travel 150 discontinued? We never sold the Star Travel 150 here in the North America, or at least here in the US. I think Canada might have before we merged the two divisions together. I really wanted to bring the Star Travel in. I have a sample of one. If you've ever gone to the Grand Canyon and seen me there, come to a few of my events, every now and again the Star Travel 150 comes out. It's a cool telescope, but the issue with the Star Travel 150 was price. It was going to be over $1,000 for that telescope. Once we brought it in, did everything and ran all the pricing, it was going to be over near over $1,000. The market just isn't there, unfortunately. So M20 and M8, the Trifid. Excuse me. It's not in the constellation of Hercules, by the way. Lagoon over here. Lagoon over here. Trifid over here. Very cool set of objects to look at. If you got a wide enough telescope, you can fit them both in the same field of view. Great view in dark skies. It's a really beautiful section of sky to image as well. They are a mission nebula, or at least the Lagoon over here is a mission. The Trifid has this little pink section that's a mission. Then it has these dark stripes inside of it. That's a dark nebula. And the blue is one of the few reflection nebulas we were talking about earlier that you can actually see. Great set of objects to go after. M17, the Swan up in Sagittarius. Amazing emission nebula. You can see why it's called the Swan even in light polluted skies. A UHC or O3 will be great. Imaging wise, go crazy on this thing. One shot color, narrowband filters, crazy different sequences of filters. All kinds of stuff you can do with this. But it looks like a swan. It's really kind of cool. Night vision with H alpha. This thing is insane to see this. It's awesome to do that. And then, of course, it's Milky Way season. So get out. Sometimes you don't even need a telescope to do this. Just go out and enjoy it. A wide field lens. We're actually going to talk about that. I think next week's episode is about the trackers and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that here in a second. There's a question. Any chance for a full truss Dobbs in the near future? We might have something coming. I don't know if it's completely truss, but there might be some new big stuff on the way. Actually, I need to look into that. There is something coming that's big. not quite truss, but I need to figure out where our sample is of those. So anyway, so July, we're going to get all of the totems sent out here shortly. I'll get the list together and we'll send those patches out. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys did for the Cat's Eye Nebula. That was quite a challenging little target because it's tiny. But for August, we're doing Sharpless 82, the little cocoon nebula. So this one will be interesting to see what you guys can get and go from there. So that'll be really cool to see what you guys can get. But that's it for August Night Skies. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on a video. If you have an idea for an episode, email us at info@skywatchusa.com and title it What's Up. Next week is called Tripod to Tracker. We're going to talk about going from shooting nightscapes and daytime just on a tripod to adding a tracker like a Star Adventure or similar mounts like that to help increase your exposure time and give you some advantages for nightscapes. So we'll be talking about that next week. There's another question here. HAC 125DX question. I see a segment on the HAC coming up in 2 weeks. Just wondering, Kevin, have you been able to fit 2-inch filters and able to get back focus? It took me a while, but I accomplished it. I have not used 2-inch filters on it yet. I am aware of an accessory that's in the works that will allow you to adapt 2-inch filters to this telescope in the very near future. I'm hoping that might even be done by the time we get to that episode. The HAC episode that's coming up is more of a real world use of the HAC. We did the overview where he told you about specs and what it is and all that fun stuff. This episode is going to be, okay, you got one. What can you do with it? How is it interesting? Blah, 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 blah. There's some accessories that have already come out for it from third parties, and there's stuff I already know that's in the works as well. We'll talk about all that, things you can add to making the HAC even more flexible. That'll all be talked about in a couple weeks, and I'm excited to show you guys some of that stuff. But I am aware of an adapter in the works that will allow you to use 2-inch filters, which is great. Not that you need 2-inch filters for it, because it can't even utilize them. But a lot of us already own 2-inch filters, and there are some filters that don't come in 1.25" formats. So this adapter will allow you to utilize filters you probably already own rather than just using whatever. Let's see. I think that, one more question, then we're pretty much done. Question, are there more imagers than visual astronomers in Canada and the US? That's a good question. Astrophotography is the largest growing branch of the hobby. That's just how it is. And there could be a few reasons for that. Number one, astrophotography is becoming easier. You have products like C-Star and Vionis and Origin and stuff like that that are making astrophotography easier and easier. So the price point of entry is becoming more affordable. With light pollution getting worse and worse and worse, visual astronomy is becoming harder and harder for a lot of people because it's hard to get to dark sky sites. You have to drive far. It's not convenient. People are busy. So astrophotography allows you to do more stuff and see more things from your limited location. So I do believe that astrophotography is outshining the visual world. And that's just technology coming in at that point, and people are shifting more towards that. A lot of people kind of feel that, why should I go spend all this money on a big cumbersome telescope where I'm limited on what I can see, or I can get this really small, more cost-effective, much easier telescope, put a camera on it, and I can see more than those big telescopes will ever be able to show me. So imaging is overtaking visual, but that doesn't mean visual is just dead. I know there are people out there that talk crap about visual. I love visual astronomy. I'm actually going back more to visual astronomy than I am imaging. Imaging is just not really my thing. At this point, I just don't have time to do it, but I like it. I think it's cool. I love the technology, and I test with cameras and all that fun stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, I would probably say that there are more imagers than there are visual observers in North America, because it's become more cost effective and more affordable and obtainable, and it's become easier than ever to get really good images. All right, guys. Those are fantastic questions. All of you had great questions today. I like talking to you guys. It's really cool to be able to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on things. And, but yeah. So if you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like on the video. That's it for August night skies. Next week, we're talking about tripod to tracker for nightscape photography. After that, we're talking about the HAC 125. The episode after that is observing meteor showers, and that's a pre-recorded episode because we'll be at Starfest. And then finally, we'll have Ben Hauk on from Celestron at the end of the month, and that's August. So thank you all very much for watching. Enjoyed hanging out with you this morning. Oh, yes, a couple announcements that I skipped over in the beginning on accident. If you like what you see here and you want to support the channel more, head over to skywatcher.threadless.com. Pick up some cool swag that goes and that helps us out. Where's the other half? Oh, here we go. There we go. If you are looking for a big daub because you do want to be a visual observer and you don't want to deal with imaging, or you're an imager who's bored watching your frames just stack up overnight, our daubs are on sale this month. So if you want to get a big daub, we have, looks like we have all of them in stock too. So except the little guy here. But if you're looking for a daub, all of our daubs are on sale this month. So go over and check it out. That supports us. And so, yeah, that starts today. So get a good deal on that. And then we also have our totem target, which I think I've already covered, but I'll go back just in case anybody missed it. It's Sharpless 82, the little cocoon, that guy right there. Big thanks to Ron Brecher for letting us use his images for all these little elusive targets. So, all right, guys, that's pretty much it for this month. Thanks for watching. Please have a safe weekend out there. Try to stay cool. It's rather hot, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. And we will see you guys next Friday for another episode of the What's Up Webcast. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week. See you guys.